First off, welcome back, John Voket.
Thank you.
Since we last talked to you, some things have changed at the Newtown Bee. Nancy said goodbye to our listeners last week. We wished her the best. We enjoyed talking with her week in and week out. And over the last few weeks, she clued us in to changes that would be taking place at the Bee. Talk to us a little bit about your new position. I'm not just talking about your ergonomic desk.
So it really has been a situation where 20, 18, 20, 22 years ago, I was running, multiple papers in my first editor's job. I started uh, as editor of what was the Valley Gazette under Hometown Publications at that time. Soon after that, because of the sort of connection to Shelton and Shelton's place in the Naugatuck Valley, it was a logical step to take over the Huntington Herald job, which meant another edition with another editorial, another column every week, additional personnel, and a huge amount more reporting duties. And then when when Hometown Publications started a newspaper in the BOW communities, Bethany, Orange, and Woodbridge, and in the Amity area, they also put me in charge and made me executive editor of all three of those papers. So I was putting out 3 weekly papers within a 48-hour period, with some shared staff and some dedicated staff and a freelancer. After that, my next step was going to what was then the Naugatuck Daily News, which was a tabloid afternoon black and white paper delivered Monday through Friday. And the company that bought the Naugatuck Daily News, which also operates the Waterbury Republican American and a paper in Southington, decided they wanted to scrap the afternoon black and white tabloid and went to a full color broadsheet that they printed on their own press. So went up there and took over that paper and helped guide them through a black and white daily to color twice weekly transition. Had a staff of about 6 people, and ran that paper covering Naugatuck, Beacon Falls, and Prospect for a year and a half. And then left, did some private sector work, and then came back in and mostly did writing, management, recruitment. I got heavily involved in the New England Newspaper and Press Association, worked my way through its executive board, served as president for a year. Was very busy kind of in the regional New England national industry, kind of had my toes in that pool, and still do. Now I'm still serving on their board, and now I'm back in charge of not shoveling and producing as much content. It's completely shifted. It's kind of gone from doing plumbing to being a carpenter, because the stuff I was putting into the package up until a couple of weeks ago has now shifted to being the person who's overseeing and ensuring all this stuff gets put into the package by other reporters, including a brand new hire who's been great for this first week he was on the job.
So you have been with the Bee for some time.
And I actually took over as editor on the 18th anniversary of my hiring.
That's terrific. So it's a lot. Nancy called it a logical move last week, and it seems to suit you just fine. Talk to us about what we can expect moving forward. Have you already started to think about the future? I'm assuming that you have some plans.
Yeah, actually, this week's edition, which is on newsstands now, doesn't just represent a new departure for me, having written my first editorial, except for a couple of guest stints in over 20 years, but also always thinking about issues happening in the community that can serve not only as future editorials, but as ways to spin off other stories for reporters to cover. We are also in the first week of a brand new relationship with a printer. We lapsed our printing operations of our own ownership on a black and white press. We've gone to a full color press. Our sister publication, Antiques in the Arts Weekly, is now full color. The Bee will be moving in that direction in the coming months as well, which is a really exciting development. And we're on a heavier, more substantial feeling paper stock. You can, if you put last week's and this week's paper side by side, especially with even a weak magnifying glass, and you looked across the elements of the paper, even just the front page, you'll see tighter, crisper type, which should be easier to read. The headlines and the images pop a little bit more just because of the way the new press run and the new equipment is printing the paper. So a lot of changes in that respect.
But as I think you had referred to it, the wingspan, the width, the size of the paper is familiar. That hasn't changed.
Yes, you still have to be a pterodactyl to read it. Yes.
Right. So, listen, I'm happy that we're talking right now, because as I'm assembling my newscast for today, I'll call upon you for some news. So I'm going to put you to work. The congratulations are over, John.
Sure.
What's in the pages of the Bee?
Well, sadly, what is relatively new, or what is relatively new is new again, in respect to the fact that we will be going into our second Labor Day holiday without our long-standing and extremely popular Labor Day parade, which for many years was what we were told was the second or third largest and most attended Labor Day parade in New England. Our Labor Day parade committee did yeoman's work trying to make it happen, but because of some of the unknowns and the lateness of the timing, already moving into July, the logistics were not going to happen. So also what is relatively new, being new again, a number of the closing act of each parade, a number of folks who drive our antique and working tractors in town, farmers for the most part, or enthusiasts who collect and rebuild antique tractors, have decided for the second year in a row that they will be the main event this year instead of the closing act to the parade, and they will be trundling up Main Street in a chain of tractors, and they're going
to we're not calling it a parade.
Right, in a parade of tractors up to Edmond Town Hall, and they'll be parked there for people to come and hang out and take pictures and bring the kids and let them sit in the tractor and rev the engine and all that stuff. So that's actually pretty big news for Newtown, given the tradition of the parade and the relatively few cancellations it's had over the years. Newtown has also taken the necessary steps in recent days to create a moratorium, in effect, eliminating the possibility for the potential one recreational cannabis retail operation to happening in Newtown. This was a decision that was made in concert with members of our law enforcement community, political leadership. The request through the Board of Selectmen by First Selectman Dan Rosenthal was better to put that moratorium on now and wait and see how things shake out, because we can always drop that moratorium and acquire one or more retail establishments at some point later on, than to keep it open and run the possibility of having a recreational storefront open somewhere in town. And at that point, if the state will allow more than one shop per 25,000 people in a community, it could create a situation where there are multiple establishments like that in Newtown, and the town leaders wanted to keep that in check.
I mean, it's obviously one of the biggest stories so far of the summer, and how cities and towns will negotiate, the legalization is certainly interesting. Have you heard anything from police? How is the town going to deal with it outside of this initial, I guess, apprehension? I mean,
from the law enforcement standpoint, Newtown has been very proactive in that right now, if we don't have three, we have at least two of these specially federally trained drug recognition officers who are called upon in situations where there are arrests and traffic stops that may involve a non-alcohol but a drug-impaired driver. And they are specially trained and very astute at employing various tools and tactics to determine whether or not that operator is driving or operating under the influence of some other kind of drugs. And we are very fortunate and proud that our Newtown Police Department members are called upon by neighboring departments to assist them as well in situations where they may need that expertise. They also assist, if I'm not mistaken, in training members in other departments as to what to look for that may activate the need to call in a drug recognition expert to the scene.
And I know, listen, I've talked to parents locally in town. They're concerned too. One of them was like, "Oh, now I got to deal with this." I mean, I'm sure that the police will be dealing with parents too at some point.
Sure, and there's social network arena is roiling with pros and cons, but there really is an overarching attitude in the social network posts that are either saying, we have so many liquor stores, retail liquor stores, sort of, I guess, in their mind, the equivalent of a retail cannabis shop, not medical dispensary, but the eventual retail shop. So they're saying, we have so many liquor stores. What's one recreational cannabis store going to do? And the other ones, the critics, are saying, we already have so many liquor stores. There's so much access that young people underage in our community have, not just mom and dad's liquor cabinet, but ways of getting someone to obtain liquor for them. So there is that kind of correlation between either we have so many liquor stores, so getting a pot shop is going to be adding to the potential harm that could be done to our children. Others are saying, we already have so many liquor stores. What's the harm in having a recreational pot shop? So it's all to be determined, but it won't be determined in Newtown effective this week.
And there's the story. John Voket, Commission on Aging, here's about senior center updates. Talk to us.
I am kind of very loosely on board with that story. It is since the General Electric Company, since GE and its 120 plus Newtown employees were suffering after our Sandy Hook tragedy, and we're looking for a way to try to help the community There was a consensus at the time in talking with town officials and our former first selectman, Pat Lodra, that perhaps the best thing that the community could have would be a gathering place that would provide a venue for a number of the nonprofits and families of those lost to have a place where they could of operations or their own space to gather and meet and heal and interact with the community. That whole concept grew into what was a $10 million gift for construction. And excuse me, I got to turn my radio down. And another $5 million, which would be allocated to for operational costs over the first 5 years. That community center would be built. It had the program has kind of morphed into a part contribution of the town taxpayers plus the GE subsidy. And it has created both a community center with an attached senior center. Through that whole process, the community center component was being overseen, managed, and advised by an ad hoc appointed committee. But it is the thought of our legislative council and other leaders, including those on that ad hoc community center committee, that they would like to have some sort of permanence. And instead of doing it as a charter revision, which is much harder to change or pivot out of if there's some reason to, they decided that they would create that permanent community center commission by ordinance. So the entire process wound its way through the ordinance committee of the legislative council, and it is on the cusp of being approved. So once that situation is resolved, we will have a permanently seated community center commission codified in town ordinance.
Okay. We talked with Nancy all the time about how there would always be fresh information on social media and on the newtownbee.com, but how you still want to get the physical copy of the paper. There's always extra in there.
Lots extra.
Yeah. Lots of, so talk to us about.
Yeah, we have traditionally recognized that with the challenge of finding a vendor who would partner with us to create a appropriate and effective paywall situation for the Bee, that we are going to continue to have to for both logically and for survival purposes to have a presence on the internet. So we have been in effect giving the community and any of the average 30,000 unique viewers a week to the website a portion of our product every week, kind of metered out between Thursday and the following Tuesday. And this is on the website. All of the stories that are intermittently posted on the website typically also get at least the byline stories and the important features get shared on our social networks, which is 18,000 plus social members and followers. Will get the cream of the crop or the top line stuff. Anybody who comes to the website can still access the obituaries. They can access the community calendar. They can access the op-ed and letters to the editor, as well as select stories, features, entertainment, religion reporting, sports, etc. So we still are managing to reserve about somewhere between 45 and 55% of our total print content exclusively for our print subscribers and newsstand buyers in the actual paper, the balance of which is on the web. And of course, the web and the social networks serve as a critical component, both when we stopped printing for that 7 or 8 weeks back early in 2020, but also in the event of breaking news where whether we're on vacation or we're in the office or we're in our homes in an adjoining town or in town. If some critical news breaks and we're made aware of it, we go right to work 24/7, 365 days a year, getting that information out to our readers in our community to make sure that they are the first to have the most hyper local and accurate information straight out of the offices of their hometown newspaper.
Well, I think, as I mentioned, when I assembled the newscast for WPKN for our evening news, that's definitely one of the first places I go is your social media, then your website. So from a synergistic point of view in our relationship, I want to say thank you for that.
Sure.
So what if, for the people picking up their hard copy, what else is in there that they'll be reading about this
Well,
week?
we have a kind of a weird anniversary this in recent days of the elimination of the Newtown Indians as the mascot for the high school's sports teams. It was, I believe, 25 years ago when they became the Nighthawks. And we are doing that at the time when there is new legislation that was approved in the implementer in the final hours of the legislative session this year that is going to remove Pequot Fund or a casino and Native Nation funds from any public school system in Connecticut that chooses to maintain any kind of Native American iconography, mascots, branding, or names for their sports teams, effective sometime in 2023. So we didn't just do a quick hit little anniversary of the dropping of the Indians mascot. It enveloped really nicely into helping to remind and educate the community that Newtown was way ahead of the curve. And if it had not been, we might be in a situation now where we are not only facing the challenge of the political correctness of losing those potentially negative connections to Native American culture, but also potentially risking the loss of some state funding to our school system.
Do you know offhand, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you know if there are any municipalities, any areas of the state that are not changing?
That information isn't at my fingertips, but as I said, it was 1996
that Newtown
when Newtown decided it wanted to lose the Indian mascot.
I think I'll mention that today. I think I just got one of my stories today.
I will expect my $2.
I'll drop it off at the office.
I will buy you 2 editions of the Bee from the newsstand.
Right. So, and again, remind
something
people.
Else we should talk to, because we really want to keep this good thing going for the community and people like you who use it, who may not live in the community, or people who may have lived in the community who still want to know what's going on in their favorite hometown. We're around 90 cents issue if you subscribe for 6 to 12 months or more, and just $1 if you're picking it up off the newsstand or buying it in our front office here on Churchill Road in Newtown. I mean, when you go to a newsstand that still has newspapers on it, whether it's Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Hartford Courant, one of the other local, regional, or municipal dailies, you're looking at a cost of 50% to 250% more per edition. And, we're still working really hard to keep people for readers.
When the Bee is Friday morning? is when you get your fresh copy?
The dateline on the paper is always the Friday each week. As a result of our new printing partner, we have now had to push a number of our deadlines that used to be late on Wednesday and even Thursday morning back to early Wednesday or even late Tuesday. So actually making those connections between the potentially breaking late story on Wednesday or Thursday morning and actually being able to get it into the print edition as well as online is a challenge I have yet to face in my 10-day or 8 days on the job, and but that day will come.
Yeah. Well, listen, first off, thank you for the the peek behind the curtain. I've learned a lot on how a weekly is gotten out there between you and Nancy. I've learned exactly what goes into. I mean, I always assumed it was a lot of work, and you've confirmed that. And and thank you for the updates. How was your fourth?
It was in the neighborhood where I live in Waterbury, almost on the Middlebury line. Very much, I believe, like the countries under fire. It was, and the cities at war. It was, it's been a buildup since probably Memorial Day.
Yeah.
The intermittent fireworks going off, but last night was the capper because it not only meant everybody with a lighter and a box of fireworks had free license to make them go. The municipality also held its fantastic fireworks display last night over the cross at Holy Land above I-84, and folks could see it for miles around, and it was incredible.
That's great. I'm glad that they were able to do that. When before I moved to Newtown from Bridgeport, I mean the fireworks would start, in
Oh
April.
yeah, you could go down to the harbor and see Milford, Stratford, West Haven.
No, but I mean the my neighbor's fireworks.
Oh sure.
Show.
Oh yeah. I mean,
and I used to always say, John, I would warn my neighbor. I'd be like, listen, they're hitting the roof. They're hitting your roof, and they're not extinguished.
Yeah.
And they would say, and then sure enough, one day they burned down half their.
Yeah. Well, more importantly, John, and it's something I actually reinforced in a social post yesterday. There are thousands of veterans and others who suffer post-traumatic, PTSD, and part of what triggers their anxiety is the sound of what could be gunshots and explosions, to say nothing of the tens of thousands of pets, from little pet bunnies and cats to dogs and others that are terrified. And sadly, many years ago, I had a friend that had a beautiful golden retriever, and that dog got so upset on 4th of July that it did not recover. And so I have a personal stake in hoping that fireworks will not be rampant around the neighborhood for days and weeks, 24 hours a day.
Right. It's like enjoy it on the 4th, and let's move on with the rest of our summer.
Right.
I put a picture of one of my dogs up last night, and I wasn't being cheeky. She's a senior, and fortunately, I mean this, her hearing is not what it used to be, so her level of upset didn't reach what it used to be. But
yeah, and likewise with me, my 16-year-old terrier was a shaking, nervous wreck with almost no hearing, because some of the explosions of the amateur fireworks were so big, the concussion shake the house. It was horrible.
Well, I'm with you. So let's hope that now we got it out of the way. Everyone enjoyed it. It was beautiful, and we enjoy the rest of our summer. John, We'll talk to you do we want to go with Fridays, or is Monday more logical?
Well, let's try for next Friday. Uh, early morning, and we'll see how that goes. And if we need to shift to Monday, then we have that flexibility.
And in the meantime, if I'm working on a story for WPKN and I need some help, I can call you.
You have my 24/7 number.
All right, John. Enjoy the rest of this holiday.
Thanks very much, John.
All right. Be well.